Esports Operation Panel. Ever wonder how the heck you run an esport organization? Well, you're definitely in the right place. Our panelists are from various parts of the esports operation scene. We have some questions on deck for our awesome panelists, but we're here for audience participation. You can ask your questions for a Q&A session to be answered at the end of this panel by typing exclamation point question in the Twitch chat, which will bring up a form for you to submit your questions. Those in Discord can be found on the lookout for this form and panel announcements. So, without further ado, let's get started. Can each of you give a brief summary of who you are, what company you work for, and how you especially work in operations? And we can start with Dan.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Dan Lee and I'm the event specialist at Ambox. I am in charge of managing projects and events for our org. I guess we can talk about kind of pre-COVID, post-COVID life. Pre-COVID times, I was running like watch parties and homestands and things that kind of connected to our company's roots, which is geolocation and kind of making New York City the esports hub and making Ambox kind of that route. And kind of molding all the things that are happening between verticals within our org, like sponsorship, merchandise, and wrapping all the things into whatever project and event we're working on. Kind of post-COVID life right now, most things are happening digitally. So running tournaments, community like parties and things over Discords, and kind of growing our brand while continually engaging the communities that we've wanted to kind of touch and continue growing within the digital space.
And next we can have Julia.
Hi all, my name is Julie Jackson. I'm the lead project manager at Beyond the Summit. I do all sorts of stuff, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But I'm essentially responsible for making sure that an event is ideated and then executed, and then all of the post-mortem stuff afterwards. So it's really full cycle. And I kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything. So it's always exciting.
And last but certainly not least, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Tier. I work for Overactive Media with the Toronto Defiant as the community manager. So what I do is everything social related. So manage all the channels. I create and design content, as well as run point on all the marketing campaigns for the team, as well as activations and digital events.
Well, thank you so much. It seems like we have a loaded panel. So I'm sure the first question is, how did you get involved with esports in the first place? And we can just popcorn that up.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we're going in a specific order. I can share a little bit of my background. So really I got started with broadcast media as early as high school. But I never really considered it as like a career, and I didn't make the connection to esports back then. Um, but I kind of continued doing events throughout my life. So when I went to university, I just continued picking up random event gigs. And it wasn't until after I graduated, worked a different job, that I was like, it'd be cool to get into kind of gaming or esports. And so I basically created a spreadsheet of like all of the video game companies or anything like auxiliary to that industry in Southern California. And I just had this like massive spreadsheet, and I just started applying to a bunch of different places. And I actually got hired at Tespa, who's one of the super awesome sponsors of today's event. And I worked there as their events and content lead, and kind of was working on the collegiate esports scene. So that's where I got started. And then obviously now I'm in my current role at Beyond the Summit, where I've been for about 2 years now.
I can go next.
Yeah.
My roots come more so from the competitive side, which slowly later turned into community. My friend introduced me to Dota on the Warcraft 3 engine and game, and ever since I've been kind of hooked. I went down the rabbit hole of like watching professional games right after school while eating, and I still like look back at those times like fondly and think about it a lot. But as I continued doing that, that led to more competitive games, League of Legends, and then kind of later towards college, HOTS. Um,
Mhm.
I kind of wanted to take a step back from doing things competitively. So I kind of turned more to the community side and the back end work, where that kind of led me to start up the gaming club at UConn. And from there, pretty much gained all the skill sets I needed to do what I'm doing now. In between those two, I worked at TESPA as well. TESPA is, everybody knows TESPA, greatest community for the collegiate esports space and stuff. So I learned a lot from there. And then because of all the things that uh, I learned, not only from like the community end through club work and whatnot, but also what it takes to be kind of playing at a professional level on the competitive side. Um, I was able to land the job here at Ambox, starting from events coordinator and just kind of vibing for the past 2 years.
Yeah, we always love good vibe, and dive in for 2 years, top notch. And you, Megan?
So this is my first esports specific job. I have been in the video game industry for a couple of years now. I previously worked at EB Games Canada, or GameStop Canada, for those in the States. So I just started off in retail, just from the store, and worked my way up into the office. I haven't really had any like specific college or university training or anything. I learned everything on the job, which is I think pretty like I'm pretty proud of myself on that front. But I started off in marketing at EB Games, and then I moved into social media, which then transferred into um, my position here as a community manager.
Wow, that's super impressive, learning everything on the job. And now you're working for the Defiant. I am personally partial to Overwatch League. Woo! So I'm very much a fan of the work that you do. So, what are some common misconceptions about working in esports? I know that there's a lot of like, some people don't even know what esports are, some people think it's super easy. What are the misconceptions that you think are happening? And for that, we can start with Megan.
Well, I think one of the biggest one that I think everyone would probably say is that you get to play video games all day. Especially there's just so many different things in esports. Like obviously the people on the competitive side, on the team side, that is what they do. But there's so much more to esports than the gaming itself, and that's what this panel is about. It's the operations, the business side, and everything. Which I would say majority of the people that work in esports actually aren't even on that competitive side, just because there's so much in the back end. So that's the number one thing, is that you don't really play video games all day, as much as you'd love to. It's yeah, that's just not what happens.
And Julie?
Um, that was also kind of my my answer. I think, a lot of people think, oh, you work in, whether it's the gaming industry in general or esports, like, oh, that must be like so much fun. You're just like playing games all the time. And it's like, no, I do have a job. Like I'm working for at least the 8 hours, sometimes 12 if we're broadcasting, right? It can get pretty grueling if you're doing coverage for an international event, or you might have to change your sleep schedules and kind of adjust and adapt to that. And it can be also very stressful because you're dealing with live or online events. There's a lot of logistics, a lot of moving parts. There could be a lot of tech failures. There's just a lot of different moving components that go into every single event. And there's pretty much someone assigned to every single part of that. And then you have people like me who are kind of responsible for all of the people that are assigned to every single component. So, um, yeah, I think for people who maybe aren't familiar with the esports industry, it can look like, oh, it's just a bunch of kids playing video games, which like it kind of is. But it's also, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, as Megan said.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I'd say a big misconception is like esports in itself is like kind of its own bubble, and that um, while a lot of people like to glorify being in the esports industry, it's like any other kind of job out there. Not everyone is a professional gamer. Not everyone is going to be up on the cameras. People are working the cameras. People are working the back end of the things that happen, the sponsorships that probably are keeping those events alive. The merchandise that are being sold, people are manning kind of pretty much everything else that any other project kind of does. It's just that we get to um, be kind of lucky that we're doing it for something that we love, right?
Mhm.
And while although gaming is not always rainbows and butterflies, I think we would all agree that we're pretty lucky to be doing what we're doing and doing what we love. And yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of love, it seems like the chat is loving all of you. I'm seeing Dan is my favorite, PogCham, Julie, Megan, and I love these people from Unknown Sam. And so it seems that there's a lot of love here. So I, for one, am so happy about that. So we're talking about these misconceptions. So let's dispel these misconceptions. So can you explain what your day-to-day duties are for your positions? And we'll start with Dan since he's getting the most love right now, I guess.
Um, uh, Day to day is very different depending on kind of what needs to be done. Sometimes when it's event day, we're kind of all over the place, making sure that the docs are in order. We have all of kind of tabs ready to get things done. Yesterday, Adam Baugh and I, Adam, who is the community specialist at Box, my go-to homie basically. We ran a Fortnite tournament for the grand finals for our Fortnite activation battle of boroughs, and um, that day will be very different from maybe like a Monday next week where we're kind of chilling down, collecting feedback, kind of going through the steps and just like checking emails and stuff like that. Um, it's never the same every day, which makes it exciting and fun, but you also just don't know what's going to happen. 4 p.m. when you're like almost ready to go, kind of pack it up for the day. You might get an email that kind of keeps you on for 2 hours working on something, and you have to get something out fresh out the door. But um, a lot of things are coordinating and planning and making sure that what you're doing tomorrow and next week and next month is accounted for. And I'd say that's kind of like the biggest part of my job, at least as like event specialist slash project manager.
Amazing. And Megan?
So I would probably mirror what he was saying, that every day is different depending on what's going on, especially it in when you have such a big off season. Like right now, we're in off season for the Overwatch League. So a day that I'd be doing now would be sort of planning for the next season. Whereas during the season and everything, my weeks would look very very similar, because basically you'd be preparing for the next weekend's game, and especially when we switched from being pre-COVID to going to different events and flying to all the homestands, to now we had games every single weekend. um Essentially, like, it'd be planning for that weekend as if it was a new event, digital event going in. So you'd have to like prepare all your graphics and every because I do all the design as well as the posting, so it's going from start to finish. So like preparing all the graphics for it, making sure all the copy is there, making sure you're replying to all of like the community and everything, and then also planning for future events and marketing campaigns with partnerships as well, and making sure that the partners are serviced, because there's so much that goes into social media than just saying like a quick meme and that's it. There's making sure your partners are represented and happy as well. So does that, I don't know if that answers the question fully, but yeah.
Oh, that totally answers the question. And I'm just like, wow, I'm in awe, really. Community management. Remember, kids, social media is not just an intern job. And lastly, Julie.
So I actually just brought up one of my project boards, so I could refer to that and cheat a little bit on this question, because sometimes I don't even remember all of the things that I have to do. But I use a project management tool that's called Monday.com. It has been a lifesaver, and we're now using it company wide. So highly recommend that. If you're working at a company and you don't have a good way of organizing your tasks, definitely use a project management system. It helps a lot. But there's a lot of different stages, obviously, to every project. In the ideation stage, you're kind of coming up with, what would be interesting to people, who would we get involved in that? Who are the players? Who are the talent? What's the prize pool like? What sponsors might be interested in this? And that, it takes a while to kind of get that figured out. What do you think, the community reaction is going to be? And we've had to do a lot of this, obviously, in response to COVID. One of the primary products that Beyond the Summit creates is our Summit series. So Smash Summit, Dota Summit, Rocket League Summit, CSGO Summit. You probably know one of them if you follow any of those communities. And a big draw to that is that we bring in all of the players, we bring in the talent, and it's kind of a very relaxed vibe to it versus kind of like a rushed like big esports arena type event. So it's more slow and just like chill, and you kind of get more of their personalities out throughout the weekend. Obviously we can't do that anymore, and it's been a bummer, but we've transitioned to kind of running summits online. And we also do a lot of white label work. So something that I have been working on is the Chipotle Challenger series, if you've heard of it. And we actually just this week did Honda Head to Head, where they revealed their new Civic. That was a Fortnite event that happened on Tuesday. And I also just finished a poker event, and that was on last Saturday. So it's been very busy in November. Smash Summit is going on right now. So there's like a lot of different types of events, and each of these projects kind of involves various components, whether it is live or online. So just kind of some of those things would be obviously all of the pre-production, which is the logistics, if you're flying in people, booking a hotel, all of that. Um, the content process, if we're creating videos, you have to, what are the ideas, go through the brainstorming, what props do you need, who are the talent, when are you scheduling this, where is it going to be, sales, which Megan was kind of talking about, your sponsors and keeping them happy, and ensuring what the deliverables are, and then executing on those deliverables, if there's giveaways, things like that. Social media, all of the graphics, all the copy. A lot of times there's like a lot of logos that you have to verify and make sure that they aren't changing, or maybe you do have to change them halfway through an event or something like that. All of the production end of things, which I'm not even going to get into, and then kind of the hospitality and logistics. So I basically have a board that has like each of these sections, and then in each section has like every task that's kind of like a default thing. And it changes from event to event, so I kind of tailor that. So in terms of what I do, I'm managing all of the tasks that are on this board and making sure that people do them. So I'm determining the timeline, the deadlines, the resources that we're putting into this. So that means, the employee time, outside contractor hires, the budget, the studio space, all of that. Um, Making sure it doesn't conflict with other things on our calendar. We're checking that it doesn't conflict with other events. So there's really so much that goes into this, and it's kind of hard to be like, you know, here's a couple things I do. It really is kind of making sure everyone at our company is on track for a project. So hopefully that gives some insight.
Yeah, it does. And I just have to say, I mean, how are you all's backs not hurting? Because oh my god, you're carrying the team like in all different aspects. Like, wow, amazing. So that actually was a perfect segue into which probably is a loaded question. So I'll give the caveat here. Can you name one of your most exciting projects? It doesn't have to be the most, but whatever comes to mind. And we can give it a little time to think about it too. Although, Dan, you're looking ready. Are you ready, Dan?
I think I'm ready.
All
For
right.
me, yeah, there's really only one answer. Before COVID happened and kind of everything went into lockdown, the culmination of 2 years of kind of growing our fan base within the city for NYXL, which is the Overwatch League team in New York.
Gang, gang.
Gang, let's go XL crew. We were basically leading up to what was going to happen in 2020, which is the start of the home stands and home games, right? And luckily, New York was one of the first or one of the few teams that were able to pull off a homestand. And man, it was so electrifying. Seeing kind of all of the work that led into bringing people in, which is just like creating fandom, making sure people wanted to be there as like the inaugural homestand, and getting people coming, and kind of seeing everybody's excitement and cheers, and the crowd going wild while NYXL took the victory both days was just it was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was really good.
Yeah, and that event definitely made waves. Just overall in the Overwatch community, I was like, dang, I wish I could live in New York City because that looked dope. So, yeah, that's definitely a great event to choose. Megan, do you have one?
Yeah, so just going off of quickly the homestand, that would have been mine. We were like 2 weeks away from our homestand before lockdown started, so it was kind of heartbreaking because like we were nearly sold out, and the whole amount of people and project like time that went into that, I would have loved to experience that on our end, because it was just like I could it's the bringing the whole community together. That would be my honorable mention. But the one that we actually got to do was the we held a goats tournament, so the goats meta, which is essentially 3 tanks and 3 supports instead of the 2-2-2 lockup in Overwatch. So
Completely
we
not toxic, by the way.
yeah, yeah.
Completely valid.
So we held a tournament at the end of September, with which all of our former members of our team were leaders, and then they brought in all of the different like either contenders players or other owl players, and we had just held a tournament like for a weekend. It was just a lot of fun. I love building up the hype within the community, not only for Defiant fans, but for just for a general Overwatch league, or even Overwatch fans in general. It was just so great seeing that, and working on the broadcast for that as well was just, it was a lot of fun and a lot different than what we've been doing during the year at Defiant. So it stood out for me. Yeah.
And Julie.
For me, there's two, which I know is kind of cheating, but the
I'll
first
allow it
one,
for now.
thank you. The first one is our very first Rocket League summit that we did. I've done tons of summits and they're all so much fun to work on, but there was just something really, really special about the Rocket League community where it was our first time really doing a big Rocket League event, but they welcomed us with like open arms and everyone was so excited about it and just like so supportive. And there were a lot of really fun moments that came out of that event, and seeing just like such a positive reaction made it, for me, like that's what makes like creating an event and executing it and seeing it through worth it, is the reaction of your viewers and like the fans of the community. And the players that we had on site as well were just like so fun to work with and so goofy. And a couple of them, like their parents were there, and their parents were like, look at so and so, like I have this video of them like playing, like I talked to one of these parents for like an hour and they were just like showing me videos of this player like playing Rock Band as a kid and stuff, but they were just like so excited and like so happy that, their kid was like really succeeding. And it was just super heartwarming to see supportive parents like that. Because I know not everyone is fortunate to have that, but it was really nice. It just was like good vibes all around. And then the second event that I want to mention is actually our Smash Summit 9. So all of our all of our summits have a theme, and uh, there's a lot that goes into like the thought process for that. But that that was happening over Valentine's Day, so I kind of like jokingly was like, "Hey guys, what if we made it a dating simulator theme?" And it stuck and we ran with it, and I was so excited, and it was hilarious because as part of our research we all went and played different dating sims and then like reported back of like, okay, we've got ideas, we have ideas for content, we have ideas for like side events. So we actually did a live dating simulator on stream where and I'm so happy like the players agreed to do this because it was just so ridiculous. But um, again, it was just really fun. It was really unique. I don't know if other people have done like live dating simulators on any of their streams, but um, it was a fun event. It was good times.
But yeah, but now we have to know, which dating sim did you have to play or have to
Uh,
play?
yeah, I was forced to play. No, I played Oh, what is it called? It's like I Love You, Colonel Sanders, the KFC one.
Oh my
Have you played that?
goodness. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's
Yeah,
free
I
on
played that.
Steam.
It doesn't take long to play through that one. I played through that, and then I played through some mobile one. I forget what it was called
Was
though.
it the
It was about.
horse one?
No, I didn't get to.
Okay.
I didn't play the horse one. I have watched YouTube videos of that though. I think it's so funny. No, it was like some demon dating one. I don't remember the name of it, but we all like played a couple, and it was definitely fun. And I played things like Doki Doki Literature Club, which is horrifying. Um,
True
so
that. True that.
um, yeah, those two stand out in my heart.
Oh, so it looks like we're getting some questions from the chat. I'm so happy. So one of the questions from chat is people often see esports roles such as host, player, referee, etc. Oh, host, that's me. What are some roles behind the scenes that people don't know about? So I guess roles that you interact with. Or maybe things that are like, wow, that's a job? Tuffy. I know for a while I just didn't know that there were like observers, people that just had the like that their entire job is just to like watch the replay, watch the game, spectate it. I just didn't know that that was exactly what they did. So that's one.
Is this like relating to a broadcasted?
I think that they just want to know like
All
if
esports.
there's like what are some odd jobs, odd
Yeah.
esports jobs, odd titles, unpopular titles that people wouldn't know.
I mean, I think it's pretty broad. Like if we're talking about broadcasts, like things like sound designer or like lighting designer, that's always important for a live event. And like you were saying, observers, spectators, things that go into games. If we're talking like just general esports stuff, like I'm sure there's so many better examples, but like just being like a student coordinator or maybe like we at our company we have someone who's literally there to just kind of ship packages out and do that. And although you might not consider that like an esports job, it's still on their esports company. So like I think there's a lot of things that go in and out of what can be considered an esports job and how you want to kind of pitch it. Like an events job is not typically an esports job, but if you're on an esports team, does it become one kind of thing? And if you're hosting esports events, then uh, I think there's everything that other jobs do, as long as it pertains to esports. Like I think there's a role for what you're looking for: graphic design, if you want to be a salesperson, etc., etc. I think
Even
there's
sorry.
pretty much any job for esports. Yeah, sorry, I'm rambling.
Even on the like the business side, like even if you're not like super like in the creative realm, but you still want to be in esports, say you're more like math, like mathematical, there's finance jobs within esports, there's still HR within esports. So anything that you can, what you were saying, that you can find at any other job, like at a retailer, at a like a law firm or something, you could, besides a law, actually there's lawyers in esports as well. So you can always find that in esports sort of realm. That I think that was the point there too.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure. All
Yeah,
right,
there's.
so let's. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
I was just gonna add a couple that came to mind that like obviously like TOs and admins, even like what an admin does can be very, very different depending on the game or the event. I know like I have a list of people that I just reach out to for a bunch of various like admin roles, which is like there are things that need to happen on the back end that is like maybe not necessarily any one person's responsibility. And maybe that's like keeping the score sheet up to date or like helping keep tabs on the leaderboard. There's things like obviously all of the social media. Sometimes we hire people just to watch the stream for like to look out for sponsored deliverables and like make note of when they happen, things like that. Um, Obviously all of the chat moderators and people who are helping on that end of things. Within content, there's photographers, videographers, editors, people who create custom maps. I mean, it's there's so much. We hire artists sometimes to help with merch or like design certain backgrounds or things that we need for content. There's hospitality people who help with logistics ends of things, or we just need extra hands on site to make sure everyone gets fed. And then obviously within production, you've got like your A1 assistant directors, technical producers, production assistants, coordinators, replay ops, observers, TDs, you know, people who are helping create like the set designers. There's there's so many different roles within it. And I think if you're like looking to get started in esports and you're not really sure what exactly you want to do, I think like the best thing that you can do is kind of just tell people like, hey, I want to get involved in some way. Like, here's the different games that I follow, and here's kind of like what my interests are, and just put that out there to like anyone that you know who works in esports. And like, if they're like me, they're gonna keep you in mind and be like, okay, next time you're hiring and you're like, man, I don't know, I need someone for this role, who do I know? And then you're like, oh, you know, so and so said they were interested in this. Like maybe this is something that they would want to do. And being able to just kind of like accept those random oddball jobs, and then through that you can maybe discover what you enjoy doing, or at least get like more exposure into different scenes and different esports. So yeah, also like league ops and like people who are helping with like actually grabbing players and telling them where to go and what to do and managing the teams and all of that. So, yeah,
Yep.
translators.
Well, there you have it, folks. Literally just have a skill set and
And you
tell
can work in
people you want to be in esports. There you go. There's so many rules. So, going off of that, what are some important lessons that you learned while working in esports? Besides that, there are many roles in esports. And Julie,
like
we can start with you.
life lessons or like work lessons or just things that I've learned.
I'm gonna take some creative liberty for this shot, Tristan, and see, I guess, life lessons.
Uh, oh my gosh. Well, I think for my role, and this kind of applies to anyone working in events in the events industry, I guess, is that there's always going to be something that you haven't accounted for or that you couldn't even account for. And how you respond to that and work through it is so important. And, you know, maybe the first time this happens to you, you're like a wreck. But hopefully, you know, over time, you're like, okay, I've got this. I can work through it. We're going to figure this out. And I can give a couple of recent examples. So, end of October, we had an event where um, one of the players was affected by Hurricane Zeta that came through, and they had no internet and they couldn't play in the tournament. So, like, it was the day of the show that that happened, and it was something that, like, it was like, okay, who do we have on standby? Can someone fill this role? Like, is there somewhere that they can go that does have access? Is there some other way we can get people involved? Like, just being able to like think through these problems and not like completely freak out. Or at another recent event, there was like a potential, like the day of the event, someone was notified that someone who they live with at their workplace had COVID. And so it's like, okay, what do we do? Like, if this person could potentially have this. And so, very quickly, like making sure that we could accommodate them remotely and kind of work through that. And just as a follow up to that, they were all good. Like, everyone was clear, they got tested, and it didn't end up being a problem. But, you know, things like that, especially right now in the current state of things, like um, you kind of just have to work through whatever's thrown at you, and that's like one of the biggest like lessons, is just like coping with that initial stress and like maintaining a positive attitude. Because if you're an event lead or a project lead, people are going to be looking to you to kind of like give direction on this, and if you're a mess, then it's going to be pretty hard for other people to like stay calm and work through it. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I've kind of like learned or just like grown throughout time in working on events.
Yeah, that's
Um,
very insightful. Megan, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, well, I would kind of go off of that in a sort of sense, and basically like making sure that if you need help on something, to make sure that you ask your teammates or anyone around you if you need help. Don't overwork yourself, and always try and pace yourself, because that is will be the number one thing for in making a mistake. Even if you make a mistake, take a second to pause and just breathe. Don't think you have to deal with it immediately, because that in the end, sometimes taking that extra 5 minutes will save you in the long run, to not make, say, a mistake again, or being able to get past it. Because that I think that, especially during times when we're right now we're not together in order to be able to solve any issues, where you might feel alone. And this is going to be how like events or social media is going to be run for the next while, especially because we won't be able to have events, especially in the States and Canada. So it's just basically making sure you know you're not alone, and reaching out to the people to get help to solve the issues, and not like making sure you're taking on things that you can't take on, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really need to say anything else, but I guess I'll give less work advice and just like life advice or whatever that pertains to work. I always tell myself, do what makes you happy, be happy with what you do. And I know a lot of people may not have thought of it, but it relates to pretty much everything that you're doing, whether you're in school, whether you have a job, doing a different hobby and stuff like that. I'm sure you've been in group projects or just a class that you can't stand, right? You just want to study, you want to get that A, but just like, man, I can't even pick up the book and read it because this is awful. And that's going to happen at jobs too. There's going to be times where, say, you get a gig at an esports position, and you're like, wow, I'm in the industry now. I'm going to be part of the gaming crew and whatnot. But um, you're not happy doing what you're doing there. It'll ultimately kind of lead you towards failure, and you don't ever want to chase failure. You shouldn't be afraid of failure, but you also shouldn't run towards it, right? So um, always kind of being content and striving to do something that makes you happy, so that in the end you're working full throttle without having to burn out. You're enjoying what you're doing. You're enjoying it with the people that you're doing with, and yeah, just some damnly heart-to-heart advice.
Well, these are definitely great insights, and I hope that chat is writing this stuff down because life lessons for sure. Now, this question is particular for Megan. So, what is your approach to fostering a great community like the Defiant fan base?
The number one thing that I think is making sure you're listening to what your community wants, and actually actively asking for feedback. So for example, this past, I think, month or month and a half, we sent out a survey to some of our Discord fans, having it open and asking about feedback about this whole past season. So anything from any events we threw to actual, like, what you think of our partners, and what you think of our graphics, what you think of our design, anything and everything. And we just were and asking for the feedback specifically, because you can kind of get what you can from comments and that sort of thing, like on, say, like a tweet or whatever. But there's always the people who think the strongest will put out their feelings, but not everyone. There's so much more to it than just the ones that speak the loudest, essentially. So getting that feedback and asking people to directly tell me what you think is the best way. And we definitely learned a lot from that as well, because there's things we asked them, like, what event did you specifically like, and what did you dislike about that, so that how can we improve it for later, instead of just basically like taking what we get at face value. We really dug into what our fans and community want. And then also making sure that where we can, especially in our Discord, it's one of the best ways to connect directly with our fans. Making sure that everyone is welcome and building a really good mod team as well. We have I think, I mean, not to be biased, one of the best mods in like mod groups in the OWL community. I don't know, I haven't really checked out too many others, but from what I've heard, they're very good at welcoming people and making sure that that everyone feels safe and welcome. So I think that those are the two big things to focus on.
Megan, for that question. We have another chat question, and I think this one would be best answered by Julie. So, having a TO is an important role in local tournaments. Is there always a dedicated TO and invitationals for, like, I guess, for Beyond the Summit, or does the whole team kind of work on the tournament?
That's a good question. There's not like one answer to it. It really depends on what the event is. Um, I'll give an example maybe for both Dota and Smash. So we kind of have people at our company who are experts in the game, and they're usually acting as kind of the TO for the summit. But what we'll often do is when the event is actually happening, so they're kind of maybe the main point in the whole planning process and working on, you know, the rule set and deciding teams and all of that, or players. But we usually always have someone on site for the actual event who's just like solely focused on TOing. So a little bit of both. Like there's kind of and then sometimes for stuff like our our white label, sometimes I'm the TO, like where I'm just kind of project manager, TO, creative producer, like hybrid role. So it really kind of depends on like how big the event is, how many people are participating, if it's multiple days, if it's just one day, um, things like that, and also like how complicated the format is and the rule set and the prize pool and all of that. So yeah, there's pretty much always someone that is like a dedicated TO, but their title might not necessarily be that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's just kind of as needed basis, like you mentioned earlier. And now for Dan, what is your approach for setting up a successful event, Mr. Event Manager person?
That's a loaded question. For me personally, I always like to start off with thinking kind of a overall view. Thinking what is the purpose of this event and what should the end results kind of be, or at least what it should it look like. Once that is all established and done, I like getting all the details down on paper, and then from there doing what we call a kickoff call. Pretty much get all the stakeholders from all the different verticals who are necessary for the project, and basically assigning roles and responsibilities so that we know throughout the whole entire campaign and post what should be done, when things are going to get done, putting milestones in so we can hold everybody accountable and make sure that kind of all the things and tasks are met on time. And pretty much that leads into game day. On game day, like Julie was saying, like Megan was saying, like being calm, being collected, and being sure that as a person, as a project manager who is overseeing all the different things, uh, maybe somebody on the merch team or sponsorship team, they're not going to always know exactly what's happening. Only you kind of have the vision to see everything. And if you're not the person, if you're not going to be the person who is calm and make all the decisions if there's a fire that goes on, everything is going to kind of crash down, right? So making sure that you account for pretty much anything that might go wrong, and even then, like there's a saying, if anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So even if you might not have accounted for it, being sure that you appropriately make the steps to fix that problem and make sure that everything continues to go on happens. And then I think my favorite part of an event is not what happens during or pre, but what happens after. An event doesn't end when you take off your badge and put it up on your collection of badges. It kind of never ends. You get the feedback from the people who attended, from the people who helped you work on your project, and kind of taking notes down on uh, the things that went well, the things that didn't go so well, and how you're gonna morph and change your event and the processes to make everything become smoother and become more efficient and become overall better between everyone and their sentiment. Yeah, that's pretty much the TLDR of my approach.
Yeah, that was a great TLDR. So we've had so many like loaded questions. So now this one hopefully is a little bit more casual. Maybe you feel strongly, maybe you don't. But what is the most slept on game that should be the next esport? Or just like what do you think it should be a esport? What do you want to be an esport? I can personally answer that I want to see like some professional like Among Us. Like I would need some like actual like casted Among Us. That's what I want personally.
That was going to be my answer. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Great minds think alike, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was waiting for Fall Guys Summit, you know. I don't know if people have been still playing it as much as they did in like August, but super fun to at least I find it super fun to watch. I don't know what kind of format you would create for that. um, but I think it would be really funny to watch. It wouldn't live long enough though to be a full full esport.
Stream flavor of the month. So sad. So sad. Comes, it goes.
Yeah, I'd say Among Us too. Or there's like this super indie game called League of Legends that no one really plays. I think it'd
Yeah.
be sick. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally underrated. Small indie company, Riot Games. Actually, I heard that they do music. Yeah, I heard they're going some great places with music. You might want to check that out. Just like a little thing I heard about. Ooh, it looks like we have some more chat questions. Thank you so much to chat for these questions, by the way. All right. So I know that you all previously touched on how your jobs have changed pre and post COVID, but could you go into a little bit more details about skills that you have had to learn because of COVID? I mean, probably Zoom is one of them, but just things that helped you transition from a in-person to a remote type of job.
I can kick this off. I think being coordinated with your time as well as other people's times is super important, especially because since everyone's living inside, there's a lot more things to kind of uh, be careful of, I guess. Not everyone's in the same room, so it's harder to get everyone coordinated. And like, we can't just say, "Oh, guys, like something urgent came up. Let's huddle for like 15 minutes or whatnot," right? So, being on the lookout for people's calendars, whether you're using Google Cals or whatever else. I don't even know if there's anything else out there, but being good with your time as well as others people's time is super important. Time management, and also like kind of self care. It's not exactly work, but what you do on your time and how you take care of yourself will affect pretty much everything that happens throughout your day. So, um, doing things that taking breaks and doing things that kind of take the stress off and make sure that you're good to go the next day, super important.
I think that's also like more important now than ever. It was important before, but now I mean, like, this is my bedroom, which this half of it is my office and the other half of it is my bedroom, and then I pretty much, I'm living in an apartment by myself, so it's like I don't have a whole lot of separation now between work and home and my gym, which is my living room. So it's all kind of just like in one realm, and admittedly I haven't been doing maybe the best job of like keeping these aspects separate. And it's just so easy for it to kind of all bleed together, and especially when you're someone that like it's kind of getting pinged like all hours of the day. It can be hard to just like shut off those notifications or like turn off the computer. Like, my computer is now being used for, obviously I love playing games, but it's also my workstation. So there's kind of like this weird conflict going on. Um, so I think still being able to identify ways to like step away for a while, even if it means going to a different corner of your living space and like reading a book for a while or just like unplugging a little bit and purposely making yourself offline or unavailable is really important. But then also the other part of this, my first kind of reaction to this question was fortunately at BTS we've kind of done some online events prior to COVID, so it wasn't like a complete shock for us to transition over. But there were kind of new elements in the fact that like prior to this I pretty much only did our like live events. So I was doing a lot of our summits and like handling all the hospitality and very used to like interacting with everybody, kind of as Dan was saying, like you're in office, you have all these meetings, you're bumping into people, it's really easy to get information across. And then now it's just like, okay, I have to be like very intentional about like setting more online meetings or calls with people to make sure I'm checking in with them, or really again going back to like the project management platform, like creating these logs where it's really easy for people to go and access information on any task or project. um but also for me, like it was a little bit weird transitioning into being this like online ops person because I didn't really do that too much before. But this element of like, I am this voice who's here with my headset and you can reach me digitally, and I have information that I can download into your brain about what is going on across the whole project, and kind of being a point person. I've been doing more events where I've been acting as like PM, creative producer, and TO. And so there's been a little bit of a learning curve there in like integrating those roles together and understanding what that means in this new online world. So kind of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that addresses the question.
For me, like getting a little bit more specific into like what I did, my role pre-COVID and then post-COVID, obviously with social media and with working on the team side, fans want to see what the players are doing. But having access to the players, before I could just go in, take some pictures of them scrimming, or like we take photos of them doing their like whatever they decide to be doing and post it. But post COVID, players went on to a very highly quarantined, like even more quarantined than what would be normal, because they are like the prize of our team. They are the ones that play for us. So no one had access to the players besides the players themselves and coaches. So it was basically figuring out and planning how I can still get that content from the teams and teaching other people. So it took many more steps to get that one photo of a player, because I had to teach how the coach how to use a DSLR, what settings to use, what this and that, all remotely, and then making sure that they are all gotten correctly, because they're still partnership deliverables. For example, we have a Canon partnership, so we need photos on a Canon camera, for example. So making sure that things can still be usable while still um, pleasing the partners, because the players are a huge part of why partners sign on, for example. So it's kind of like adjusting how I get the content, not being able to basically be getting the content fast, and also having to plan it a little bit farther and ahead, because it's the environment's just changed completely.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. And speaking of remote, we have just a little bit of time left on our panel. So, where can everyone find you all on social media?
Twitter, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. All my handles are the same. It's Megan, MEGAN _tier TEARE. So easy peasy.
Yeah,
Julie?
my Twitter handle is Juliventure. It's Juli Venture, Venture. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, my name is Julie Jackson. I work at Beyond the Summit. So put that in. I'm sure you'll find me.
Everything for me is Danley for 3, DANLEEFOR, and then the number 3. Yeah.
Amazing. So make sure to check out these amazing panelists. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge about esports operations. I definitely have learned a lot, and I'm sure the chat has. And they are all pog champing. There is hype in this chat. There's always that, oh, yeah, it's happening. It's happening. So thank you so much for your time. And before we go to our commercial break, I would just like to quick shout out to our partners. Twitch Student offers the means to throw an even larger, greater audience by representing your university on Twitch and gain skills and experience valuable in gaming. Geek Therapeutics, the leader and the gold standard of teaching professionals, students, and others about geek therapy. And Leyline. Leyline is a nonprofit creating digital economy that rewards people for contributing to causes they care about. Leyline connects users and the causes they care about, rewarding them for doing good in the world and supporting fights against poverty, climate change, cancer, and more. So thank you all for stopping by. See you next time.
Yes, for having us.
Thank you.
Shout out to the
Thank you.
esports.